Hello YouTube, my name is Venator, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking you guys how I went from this hatchling to this albino monster. So if you guys enjoy the video, please drop a like or comment below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that way you don't miss out. And so if you're wondering how I got this incredible albino skin, well, we're going to start at the very beginning of the journey, and that is being nested in by the Twitch streamers Landmark and Mindflayer. So how did I get in this situation? Well, if you watched my East Lake video, last time on Petits NA server, I ended up entombing that guy and going on to die. So, since I graciously gave my body to feed Mindflayer and Landmark, they, in their kindness, threw down a nest in the skin spot and nested myself and some other people in. And lo and behold, after so long, I got lucky and hit that awesome albino skin mutation. And for those that don't know, on Petites, there's certain areas around the map where Twitch streamers can nest, and then their babies have an increased chance at landing a cool skin, just like I did here. But as soon as you hit that first mutation, that's all the help you can get from your parents. From that point on, at least on Petites, you're on your own. So once I hit first mutation, it was time to leave my parents, Landmark and Mindflayer, behind and begin my own grow here in East Lake. And now in this video, I'm going to show you guys the entire grow, from this point all the way up to 8 tons. I'm going to show you every time I get food, and basically my whole thought process and methodology in East Lake. Because I got a ton of questions on how I grew that prime in East Lake, and how I did it without leaving the lake. So we'll get into a little bit of that towards the end of the video, and the little nuances that at least I personally believe affect your chances for getting prime. But anyway, immediately after leaving my parents, I came around the corner because I smelled some food, and I found a larger dino that was also here growing. So I did what anybody would naturally do and grouped up with him, because outside of my parents, he was the next biggest croc in the pond. So he'd be a good guardian and could provide me with all the food a growing Deinosuchus would need. Unfortunately though, I crashed, and I thought I was going to be dead, but I came back and I was still alive, so all was not lost. But as you can tell from my in-game message, I did not expect to be alive. There's a lot of stuff in this area, and if he would have just left my body for 30 seconds or a minute, any other small gator in this pond, nested in or not, or dino on the land, could have easily killed me. I got really lucky there. Hopefully they get these game crashes figured out in the horde test, but I doubt it. Anyhow, moving on, my first step in this grow was to start trying to knock out these prime requirement tasks. And the first and most dangerous one for a fresh spawn in East Lake is by far the run up to the sanctuary. All it takes is one adult Troodon to find you, and that's it. Game over. Luckily for me though, I've gotten pretty good at doing this because I've done several grows in East Lake. So if you go up the north side, you can kind of stick in the jungle and just touch the outskirts of the sanctuary, not really have to mess with going in the actual middle part of the sanctuary. See right there, I just hit the edge of it, got stung by the bees, and so it was a mad dash back down to the water. And then right here, my playing partner at the time did a fantastic job of scaring the living crap out of me. I thought a large dinosaur was chasing me on the land because of my bright white skin. Turns out it was just my partner chasing me back into the water. And now that we had the sanctuary requirement done, I came back over here and ate some bones, and then that is the perfect diet. Because for those of you that are new to the game, if anytime you come across some bones, you should always try and eat them because they give you all 3 diets. So 1 bite of bones, and that's the perfect diet task finished right there. And now that I had both of those prime requirements out of the way, the name of the game was to get my diets as high as possible and keep that hunger bar as full as possible. And a great strategy for this in East Lake is to take the schooling fish and let them sit out on the shore for 7 minutes. And then, as you guys can see, they will give you a diet. And I always bring them over here to the East Lake Cave compound, where you can always hit those gastros, which make your hunger drop faster. That way you can keep pumping those diets up. But see, a lot of people have been saying they haven't been finding any AI. And from at least my experience in East Lake, and you guys will see later on, I've been having pretty good luck. You just got to look around and keep constantly patrolling the entire lake. Right there, I would find the schooling fish in the middle and then take them back over here to the cave, hit a gastro, and let that fish sit for 7 more minutes. And while I was doing this, I was basically just going and hiding during this time, or looking for elite fish. Since I was paired up with a decently bigger gator who at this time was the biggest guy in the lake, I wasn't really playing with too much safety in mind. I was kind of just doing my own thing, looking for elite fish and hoping that I would get lucky and find a big elite fish to fill that Y diet up. Because it always seems like Y diet is the hardest to find. Anyway, after 7 minutes and my hunger back down to half, it was over here to my little fish. And as you can see, it just takes 1 fish to basically fill my stomach from half almost back to full. And look at that A diet go up. If I would have put 2 fish out, I would have been 100% food and 100% A diet. Just like I do right here. As you grow, it just starts to take a few more fish. And while we're on the topic of Y diet, as a baby Deinosuchus, sometimes your best and most available source of Y diet are beppies. I normally don't kill our tiny little duck friends, but as a baby, anything is on the menu. And these guys can do some pretty decent damage once they get big. So if this guy, they grow pretty quick, and who knows if he had a friend in the area, and I didn't want to risk it. So I took his body back over here to the gastro cave, where I could roll the little organs and eat the body. Albeit, it didn't give me as much as I was hoping. But hey, any diet helps. But unfortunately, I would go on and crash again. I got lucky though, and didn't die underwater. I had enough O2 to survive the crash, and when I got back in, I grouped up with my buddy, who had some organs laying out for me. And as you can see, they're already rotten. He killed this right as I crashed. So, as you can see, it took me a while to get back into the server. At this point in time, Petits had the whitelist active, so it could be pretty tricky to get in. But anyway, these organs will do wonders on getting my diet very high. And after gastroing and feasting on the organs, which I erroneously ate the wrong one and didn't fill my diets as high as I wanted, my hunger had dropped back down to half, and it was time to do one of the riskier things while growing, and that's traveling on land to scavenge. As a Deinosuchus in Eastlake, you have to do this, I've found at least, quite a bit. Sometimes you get really lucky and find a great meal. Other times, you run out of the water and it's only something really small. At least at this size though, the really small thing will help me out immensely. And not long after getting back in the water with that little morsel of food, I finally hit 50%. And for my fourth mutation, I went ahead and took hypermetabolic. Because, as you guys are going to see shortly, since I was nested in, I inherited a few mutations from my parents, which were the saltwater mutation and the faster swim speed mutation. Both great pickups to be born in with. And as always, I took slower hunger drain for my first mutation. Always got to have that on Dino. And now some of you are probably wondering, why didn't I eat that corpse after I brought it over here? And well, the answer is pretty straightforward. Anything that you let rot will give you diet. So if you noticed, when I walked over here, well, swam over here, it was a little meat stick symbol, so it's not on my diet. But depending on the corpse, or if it's just a piece of meat, or whatever it is, eventually it will rot and give you diet. But after that, it was back on the scavenging train. I ran up here near the little mud pit and was able to find a few little morsels of food. And then here, with my hunger dropping, after spending some more time growing, I found a body underwater. Now, I don't know if this was just a little herbivore that drowned himself, or if there's actually body drops back on Petits. I couldn't tell you, but I feel like there's body drops because I kept finding, and you guys will see in this video, just all manner of things in the water dead. Like here, I'm always on the search for food, especially once I get around that halfway mark, and I found a Deinosuchus right in the middle of this little peninsula that jots out from the land. And it doesn't really look like it was a default Dino skin, but I have no idea like how he died or ended up there. I've been in this lake the whole time, and I'd never seen a croc that looked like this. And you can't store when you're that small. So unless he just died right there, no idea how that happened. But after filling up, I made my way over to this little corner of Eastlake, and this is where I would do most of my sitting and growing in safety. No one really logs in on this side, so you don't have to worry about something coming up behind you. And then I found a little buddy on the shore when I was going to investigate for some food. But as it turns out, this little guy, he was done with the Dino life. And he graciously allowed me to kill him and eat his corpse. But interactions like these always kind of crack me up. And I will always take the free food. Can't complain. I did my due diligence just to make sure that he truly wanted to be killed. Because it's not like he was a fresh spawn. He'd probably spend a good hour growing at least. And after filling up on his corpse, it was back down to the bottom of the lake to hide until my oxygen got low and I had to come up back to my original hiding spot, back over there in the northeast corner of East Lake. But like I said earlier, I'm always on the search for food, and it wasn't too long till I found another body drop. And like before, after I finished this corpse up, it was back to hiding and growing in safety. And if you're growing in East Lake, I definitely recommend sticking around the sanctuary side, especially when you're smaller. Like right here, I got a little Carno that was trying to cross to the island, or maybe kill himself by Dino. I don't know. And now that I was actually starting to gain some size, I could do some small game hunting on my own. Like this little Sarah. And the poor guy had no idea that he was being stalked. I'm not sure what was going through his head. I'm guessing he thought that this was a safe spot to drink, but he definitely learned otherwise. And now we're getting into the downside of East Lake. As you can see, I went a long time without finding another meal, until finally a small stego came up for a drink. And you can see I'm considerably larger than I was in the last little clip. But this stego, well, it will at least give me a decent chunk of food and allow me to continue growing. But since that stego didn't get me all the way to full food, and with the hunger ticks starting to stack up, I was back under half hunger in no time. So it was back to patrolling the lake. And that's when I found another Deinosuchus body drop. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the body drop system, but in East Lake, there seems to be a fairly consistent amount of drops around the lake to at least get you all the way up to the 4 to 5 ton mark pretty reliably. Once you get pretty big, that's when it really gets tough to find larger prey. So after I finished that body drop, it was back into the lake and on the patrol for more food. And that's when I hit the jackpot and found some elite fish. So whenever you're looking around the East Lake or Highlands or water access, any of the lakes, or even the river delta, when you find a group of schooling fish, at least currently as is, the elite fish tend to spawn right under them. And I couldn't believe my luck. I continued around the lake and I found a second elite fish. Now, at my size, 4 tons, they don't really give me a whole lot of food, but anything is better than nothing, and Y diet always seems to be the hardest to get. But this just goes to show that AI and elite fish do still spawn, albeit pretty rarely. And then a little bit later on, I found another Deinosuchus. Here, my hunger wasn't super low, but with how things had been previously going, I just couldn't pass up this good of a sized meal. This guy wasn't a whole lot smaller than me, and having 2 crocs of this size competing for food is just a recipe for starvation. So he had to go. And after killing him, I took his body over to the East Lake cave compound where all the gastros are. Like I said earlier, when you get a big meal and food that you know will last you for a while, bring it over here. That way you can eat, hit those gastros, and keep boosting those diets up, further increasing your growth rate. Once I had polished his body off, it was back down underwater to hide and keep growing until it was time to eat the bones. After another extended period time of patrolling and hiding, my hunger was back under half. So I was back on the hunt and coming around the lake to investigate some bee that I smelled in the distance, and that's when I found another growing Deinosuchus who just, unfortunately for him, was smaller than myself. But I guess the Isle gods were disappointed with that Deinosuchus kill, because as soon as I took him on shore to eat, the game crashed. Well, actually the server crashed, not the game itself. Either way, I lost the corpse. Because when I got back in, I was back in the water where I had just killed him. So, he died for nothing, and I didn't get any food. Felt kind of bad on that one, but you can't really predict the game crashes. So right there, since I hadn't seen anything, I gave it a little bit longer, but that's where I decided to call it a session and log out. And honestly, going from hatchling to 6.7 tons in one single session is really good. I always recommend to people that I'm playing with, don't play for too long, because that's how you make mistakes and end up dead. And then, the next time I logged in, I was really worried that I wouldn't find any food. Because, honestly, it's really tough to scratch a living in Eastlake once you get to this size. But lucky for me, the G button to grab something popped up right when I entered the water, and sure enough, it was another Deinosuchus body drop. This was much needed and would hopefully get me all the way to 8 tons in full adult. Unfortunately though, that body didn't get my hunger as high as I was hoping. So it was back on the patrol and hope that I could find something a bit larger to hold me over. And that's when I spotted a stego off in the distance coming to the water's edge to drink, and I couldn't believe it. But this was pretty tricky. I burned quite a bit of stamina trying to get over here. Luckily for me, I conserved my stamina getting over to this guy perfectly and had just enough to get a successful lunge and get him back down into the water. And all I had to do was sit here, wait, and watch. And then finally, he drowned. And after filling up on this stego and the bones, my hunger was high enough that this would get me all the way to 8 tons. And for those wondering who that croc is, well, he's someone that we all know and love, Mr. Futile Summer himself. He logged on to help me grow for the short time that he had available to play. And then finally, I hit 8 tons. And I was honestly hoping to get Prime. But if you guys checked out my secret to getting Prime video, you guys know that I didn't get it. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why I think the reason that happened. Now, on all my other grows in Eastlake, I basically used a ton of stamina the entire time, running up and down the lake. But since I had this skin, I played a lot more carefully. I didn't go around swimming really fast, wasting all my stamina in case I had to run. And I did a lot of sitting and hiding while I grew. And so that's why I'm under the firm belief that stamina is a major requirement when it comes to getting a Prime Dino. I know other people have different opinions, but hey, maybe it's server dependent. I really don't know. But then, right there, I gestated eggs because we were planning to nest. and unfortunately that wasted all of my hunger. Then these little baby raptors thought they could come over and steal the food we had on the island that was going to be meant for our babies. I gave them a couple warning shots and they did not turn around, so they had to go. And as for this corpse, well, Futile ended up storing his croc because, like myself, he did not hit prime. And he kind of came to the same conclusion that I did. He didn't really use a lot of stamina during his grow, and then, just like me, since he didn't get prime, didn't really want to keep playing on it. Can't really say I blame him. And then later that night, before I was going to store this guy, I figured might as well keep going with the nest because I had a friend who he'd been nested in by maelstrom parents. So he had the maelstrom skin colors, not the actual mutation itself, but he at least had the skin. And so I figured, hey, albino maelstrom skin eggs, those ought to look pretty cool. And I was glad I did. We got a good group nested in, and some people got some really cool skins, as you're about to see. After we got everybody in and it turned daytime, I brought the babies some food, and then I just wanted to hang out and inspect everybody's skin. All the blue and black ones, that's from the maelstrom, and as you guys can guess, the white is from myself. And a couple of them basically got the entire albino skin. Some of these guys were solid white. But as you can see, my friend's skin, it's kind of harder to tell because we're all covered in the moss. But it was a pretty cool combination. Hope some of these guys made it to adult. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video of how I grew this albino Deinosuchus, one of the rarest skins in the game, entirely in Eastlake. And while we didn't hit prime on this guy, which is unfortunate, it's still nice because with these skins on Petites, you can store them and sell them for quite a bit of coin. So that's exactly what I did with this fella. It was fun while it lasted, but since I didn't get prime, there was no reason to risk it and die. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys next time, and happy hunting.